Hey there, let's do it live on a Friday edition. Merely Bo, the great Z. How you living, buddy?
Well.
No, you were on. You were on at the first well.
Yeah, I don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
Something went very odd.
Yeah.
I'm great. It's a Friday.
But even this now isn't the audible that I'm used to.
Right.
That doesn't sound right to me. Gently do this. Give me one of these. Now give me a talk.
Hello?
No, that doesn't sound right either.
Did AB sound right when he graced our presence in here?
Hit the button once.
Hello?
That's definitely not.
Hello.
Now you're in. Now that's a world that we like to live in.
I have not touched a thing.
Interesting.
It feels like somebody is trying to thwart me.
I think it's in play. I mean, he's been overt in his attempts to thwart you.
Yeah. So why would
I
he
am
also
very
be covert?
open about the fact that I try to screw you over at some point in the day on a daily basis.
Yes.
That was not one of them.
Okay. All right.
You'll know.
You'll know, buddy.
I'll take a victory.
If you
lap
have to
on
ask, that wasn't it.
That ain't it.
That ain't it.
We were recording with luminaries earlier.
We were
As we're
recording with
walking in,
luminaries
I
earlier.
say, hey, everything's on. You're good to go. Just sit down, plug and play. What's he do? Turn off the mic. Am I on? No. Hey, listen, dummy.
You had to do down. You're the dummy.
I'm like, what are you doing?
It's like what's amazing? I just realized it as he called me that.
Uh-huh.
That he is now like my Pedro Yoke.
Oh, it's been that parallel for a long time,
yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very.
I'll
Like,
be
if
in
he
the,
ever
I'll
shows
be in
up
the will
in with-
over you sooner rather than later.
If
big
he
guy.
ever shows up with just a mustache, look
out. It's
That
over.
never happens.
Yeah,
Look
we're
out.
out of here.
That
we'll
never
see
happens.
on down the road. See on down the road. By the way, you would have appreciated. I don't know if you were able to catch any of Andrew Barry earlier, but we will be playing that in coming up here in just a few moments. But yeah, he took a big shot at a goose.
So
Which you gotta love as
the
an anti-Birdman.
transcript was read to me.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't hear it.
I watched it live, so I can help.
So the transcript was read to me.
Okay.
And I said, there's no chance that that's real.
Real.
All right.
We're looking
So
for horses.
I think
not geese.
All right.
Here at the Cleveland Browns, my friend.
I think what we need to do.
Okay.
And I'll have to hear this. Is this in the first or second part of the AB presser we're going to play? Do we know?
That I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head.
All right.
Felt like second half.
Okay.
It's been a busy day.
Yeah.
Whenever
Felt like
we
second half.
hear it,
Yeah.
if it is as it was presented,
It was.
I don't pretend to know much, if anything, more than AB. One of the smartest guys around. But I'm going to help him with his livestock analogy
Okay.
because he used a horse and a goose.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I can help him so that it's in the same species.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think it's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, everything that from what I understand it, everything he used with the goose, there is a species that would more closely align because you're not, it'd almost be like, to use his analogy, we're either going to pick players or we're going to pick a bird. Like, those are not the same things. So, like, he was using the I'm going to have to hear the context. I'm just going to have to hear
All right. I'll try to give
feels
you,
to me
I'm going to
like-
give you a preamble context,
All right.
okay?
All right.
What he was saying is that a goose
Uh-huh.
has the ability to walk. It's got the ability to run. It's got the ability to fly.
Yep.
But it doesn't really walk fast. It has to kind of waddle. It
Yeah.
can't really run all that fast for very long, so it's got to get its wings involved. And then it doesn't really fly very high. It's not like a great soaring bird, although they do migrate
They
pretty
do.
well.
Yeah, I mean, north, south.
That's where
mean,
I was thinking. Canadian geese are here in Ohio, so you do the math.
the
You do
snow
the math.
geese who come down from Canada. I mean, those guys.
That's what I'm saying.
They go. That's
You
big,
do the
big
math.
migratory bird.
So you're saying they can do a bunch of things, but they don't really do anything all that well.
yeah. Okay.
And what he's saying is a horse can run in a straight line or around a track very, very fast and has a unique ability to create that kind of speed. So he said what they're looking for is more of, instead of a jack of all trades, master of none, we're looking for somebody who does something at a special level, even if they have other deficiencies.
Why
Like a
not
horse
just
can't fly.
substitute a horse for a eagle or a hawk, and then you're in the same species? Because a hawk can't swim, a goose can swim,
Sure.
but the hawk can do elite things,
Why
elite
can't
traits.
a hawk swim?
No webbed feet.
True.
Sad.
But I feel like he could maybe get in there and get his little his tush going. Get
no, if you ever they go in and they get out. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not staying in it.
So you could say in a sense though they swim because they're able to they dive. They're divers.
No, I don't think they do. I don't think they ever submerge.
You don't think they go fully submerged?
I've never seen one. I mean, even like a bald eagle
like
that
what-
I've
'cause, like, they
seen
come in
get
and-
the salmon, they come up and pull, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So I think he could have just stayed in the same species, and if he wanted to go with his analogy, he could have even done the cow horse analogy.
Sure.
Because a cow isn't spectacular in any way other than the production of beef, which is good to eat, and conversely,
It makes those patties.
Yeah.
On the reg.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not even as versatile. Like a horse does horse apples, and they can harden, and you can throw them.
At
There's
people.
even more value
Well,
there.
you could get a pat. You get a
No, you
Frisbee.
really can't. They don't fly. You'd know that back on the brown spot.
Well, brown spotted, we had a special diet said they would produce frisbees.
There you go. Yeah. So I look forward to that. How about this Jamison Williams thing, man?
I am in 2 dynasty leagues. I found out about this from S.
I'm in 2 dynasty leagues.
I found out about this from S.
We're
We've been
literally
sitting on this guy for 2 years now. Won't even get to use him in the first 6.
When I was first, this was another one that was happening, and so when it was read to me, I misunderstood it that he was gone for the year.
Yeah,
that he
6,
was done. He's just out 6.
Because he.
Quintez Cephas is out for a year, and there's 2 other, and they've already been released.
Yep.
So Jamison Williams
Yep.
was betting on non-NFL
Correct.
in the facility.
Correct.
Could this have been prevented had he not been on the company's Wi-Fi? As I tried to find a workaround here, this feels like he failed an intelligence test.
Yeah, he did it. You're not supposed. Look, first of all, the rules are silly, but they are the rules,
They are
and
the
you know
rules,
them, and they make you incredibly aware of the rules. Like if you fail something on the gambling policy, that's on you. They
Yeah.
give you documents, they give you training, mandatory training that you have to go through. So you should not be on the wrong side of it. The guys who got a year, I thought, didn't they do something in the NFL?
They bet on NFL games.
Yeah, not their own.
No, but I don't
Well,
know. But
they
it
should
could
know
be.
that that's out.
But right,
definitely
yeah, they
can't
bet
do
on
that.
NFL games. Yeah.
And then Jameson supposedly bet on a basketball game
Yes, but he did it in the facility.
in the facility.
So he can bet on a game. He just can't do it in the facility.
Which it would lead me
Is
to
that like a
believe that
technicality?
they then have different rules than we do, the players, because I cannot, as a Browns employee, bet on anything at all. Period. Full stop. Any sport. I think they need to roll that back.
Well, of course
Every
they
other
should,
league
because even
is
like
different.
fantasy football is that it is betting.
Well, I can't. That's why I'm limited in what I can participate. There's a cap on the financials that you can participate in fantasy football. So that's all I can play for now.
yeah.
But yes, failed in some ways an intelligence test. On the other hand, so what?
Correct. That's where I am. Like, who cares? He bet on
Who
an
cares?
NBA game.
Now, an NBA player can bet on NFL games from anywhere.
Yeah.
It is not, the converse is not true. An NFL player, although I was surprised that he could bet on an NBA game, he can't do it from the facility. Supposedly the thing with Miles Austin is that he put bets in from his car in the parking lot of the team's facility, and that's where he got
That's
in
where he
trouble.
got pinched.
Yeah.
So he could, if he just drove across the street, he would have been fine.
Fine.
Yeah.
Which also begs the question, does the NFL have some type of a deal with these sports books where they're giving the locations of their customers' bets being placed?
Well, I'm sure you're geo-tracked when you're in the building.
But why would
here.
the NFL even be looking at that?
I have no idea.
I think
Probably the individual
I think
team
the
is.
moment if you're a player or any personnel, and we're not allowed, but if we were, it would be red flagged, and they would trace the IP address.
For sure, but let's
Do you
give an
think it's like
example
the room
of,
in Mission Impossible when if the temperature goes up 1 degree? And
Yeah. Yep.
But let's
I
just say,
firmly believe
for example, you and I, on this show, to do the scores, go to some place that will give us lines on this IP address. We're not placing any bets.
Yeah, but we don't ever say we don't say that.
No, but I'm saying
that's why you have to pay attention.
In the world, they would know through our IP
Oh
that
yeah,
we were
yeah,
on
yeah,
that
yeah,
website.
yeah.
We're
Yeah,
not-
I don't know.
It must be when they actually place the ticket.
I suppose that would be the difference of it all. I don't know.
To me,
but it's an enormous. Let's get rid of that
Yeah.
for just a second and do a couple of minutes on the football side of it. This is an enormous blow for them. Enormous. They are a team that is very quickly on the ascent.
Yes.
It feels like they could make a real play in the NFC, and now their biggest weapon offensively,
Gone.
at least what they drafted to be their biggest weapon offensively, is gone for 6 games. So he'll be there through camp. He'll at final cutdown, then he'll go away for 6 games and then come back in week 7. It's a tremendous blow for them. Like I started to think, do they rethink their draft process on that? Like now all of a sudden, do they feel like they have to draft a receiver at some point? Not at the first
They brought
round.
in Marvin
certainly.
Jones as well. I mean, they probably feel like they can.
Just a big blow, man.
Yes.
To lose a weapon like that for 6 games.
Tequila fila.
Look at that guy. Nobody had a bad time. The best. So that's a stunning one.
It's
Brutal for them.
Brutal for them. Brutal for me and S. Sad day for us. I mean, you drafted the guy last year so that you could sit on him and have him this year. And
That's how the Lions feel. Except they're playing for real.
Yeah, well.
They've already cut
Listen,
two
I'm
of
not
the
doing
guys that
DLD.
were
If I'm doing
suspended
DLD, I'm crying a little
indefinitely.
bit more for them. Right now, I'm crying for me and S.
I have no sympathy for you.
3-time
Brutal.
champions of the
Brutal.
By the
College
way,
Football League.
the official animal warden of the show, Matt
Good, yes.
D'Souza, birds of prey don't swim. They dive feet first, catch, and fly away.
There it is.
I believe I had that.
You did.
So that would have been the analogy, as opposed to going cross species.
I'm fine with it.
I'm sure you would be. You're Bay Area. What do you know about
Apples and
species?
tacos.
You have no idea.
Oh, I know
So
about
that's it.
species.
The brown spotted is up there.
That's
up there with Wednesday Night Taped.
No, it's not.
It's in the ballpark.
It is absolutely not.
The brown spotted was an
You tell me you've never
unbelievable-
seen a cow that has brown spots on it?
You passed it off as the breed.
That's right. That's the layman's terms.
It's not a thoroughbred. It's a gray spotted.
Fine.
That's the equivalent. So it's there.
All
right, let's do the
Wednesday night. Take that
Wednesday
back.
night
I
tape
will
is
not
on its-
continue on this program
No,
today if you
it's
say that again.
if you do a Mount Rushmore, Wednesday Night Taped is George Washington.
Okay. Brown spotted is
Brown
not on Mount Rushmore.
Brown spotted is the next president who's trying to get the 5th. Remember, like when Trump was trying to be the 5th? That's the brown spotted take.
Or certain people that ended up 16th in a top 15 power ranking in the building.
What did you end up?
Unranked.
Unranked. Unranked.
I want to be unranked.
What about Ricky Prohl?
Ricky Prohl was amazing yesterday.
Did you like that?
It's
Very
funny. I was
amazing.
walking across the street yesterday, and Jay was right in front of me, and I just started laughing out loud, thinking about Ricky Prohl.
Ricky Prohl.
I was like, Ricky Prohl.
Wasn't he out of Wake Forest?
I just got a chance to be considered. First of all, the fact that he'd be considered for any team's 3 greatest receivers ever is laughable, but then that he would be somehow a name that was supposed to sway us away from Randy Moss, Chris Carter, and Justin Jefferson was just
At that point, Gibby was just naming human beings
did.
who played receiver with teams.
yeah.
No,
There was something
the
re-
site
you were
I was
just
on
reading
was
off
giving
of.
me like the top 3 wide receivers on a team like ever.
What's
that played,
Ricky-
like,
Ricky
in a
Prohl looks
season.
great right now. Look at him. He still looks great.
Yeah, he's thriving.
I don't know what he does. Let's figure it out. Let's see what he's doing right now.
Looks like he's coaching somewhere. By the way, you know how hard it is to get your iPhone
assistant
to
with Carolina, serves as a wide receivers coach for the St. Louis Battlehawks of the XFL.
There you go.
And I was right, Wake Forest.
Ricky Prohl played for a long time.
Holy cow, he played like 16 years, dude.
Long time. 90 to 2000. He played till the age of 38. He never had a 1,000-yard season. He had 6 seasons of more than 700 yards and maxed out at 7 touchdowns in a season.
2-time Super Bowl champ, though. He was decent on the Greatest Show on Turf. He was a kind of the change up with that operation.
Who did he win? He won with them?
Yeah. And probably the Colts. Them and the Colts.
Let's see, yeah. The 2 time. Here, maybe I'll click on it. Maybe Pro Football Reference will tell me the 2 that he won. It's got to be a Rams and a...
And Colts.
Yeah.
Ram it and Colts.
Ram it.
But, of course, he also played for the Phoenix, now Arizona Cardinals, who debuted new uniforms last night.
Okay.
I think it's important to remember a couple of things. Nike will make you whatever you want, okay?
Yep.
So if you go to them and say, this is what we're thinking, that's what they'll build you. I have been told, though, that Nike, if you say, Jesus, take the wheel, Nike will come up with stuff for you.
Also true.
More than happy to do it.
Yep.
I think it's important to remember that if you are the Arizona Cardinals, a nickname that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the bird that's on their hat, to my understanding, is not a bird that lives in the Valley of the Sun. There's a Sonoran cardinal, which is like a gray-red cardinal, but it's not that bird.
That's a Midwest cardinal.
It's a Midwest cardinal. That is a St. Louis, Chicago cardinal.
We even have beautiful
They're
cardinal
all,
in
for
Cleveland.
sure,
Yep,
for sure.
so,
But you see, when they are the Chicago Cardinals, it made some sense. Although I don't know why you'd ever name a team after a songbird, a small little bird. And St. Louis obviously goes without saying, iconic. But if you're going to stick to the Cardinals thing, and you seem to be wanting to stick to that bird on the side of the helmet, at that point you're pretty limited.
Pretty limited
with what you're going to do.
All right, what's your initial reaction?
They're fine.
They're
think better than what they were by 10,000-fold.
A billion.
I don't understand if they are going to keep the cardinal why they don't actually wear bright red instead of like a maroonish color, which makes no damn sense at all. Like where a cardinal, you have them, I have them, everybody has them. They're certainly on the east side. I can't speak to if they're on the west side or not. Probably not.
I have them. There was one on my walk the other day. I said, "What a lovely cardinal."
But they're bright red.
Yeah, with a little.
Yeah. So there's no reason for them to be maroon.
Red.
So other than, I don't know why they didn't just go to the right color red. By the way, the St. Louis Cardinals are bright red.
Bright red.
So I don't understand. But anyway.
So here's what I think.
It's fine.
Here's what I think. The whites are great.
Yep.
Clean, the silver kind of stripe down the side.
So they added silver.
Love it.
It's a Utah. There's like a little bit of Utah and a little bit of Ohio State to these.
The whites are very clean.
Yep.
They look great.
Yep.
The blacks are great.
You
and
love
that
a
black
black
helmet with the red specks that come through is awesome. The reds are awful. They really are.
It's an abomination.
The red
is an abomination.
They should just wear the white and the black, honestly.
Yeah,
don't even need the red.
Just punt on the red entirely.
Punt on the red completely.
Or wear the red with a white bottom. Like, why would you do that? All red.
Pat Tillman-y, right.
Yeah.
Why does it all have to be right? And it doesn't look like in any of the pictures, I did not see a single picture that indicated that there was a red over white possibility. It all seemed to be white. I think it's just the three, and they're just all together. That's it. What I would say is the blacks and the whites, as I said, are incredible. I do think that the font on the Arizona on the red is actually pretty cool because it looks to me like an old Arizona Wildcats.
It does. It's weird that they only have that on one of them. It seems like what the people wanted out there was the Arizona flag represented. Like many of the mocks that I saw had the flag
you don't get any
somewhere on it, and they stayed away from that entirely. I agree with you. I'm not a big unitard look. I don't like when everything is the same. The black is, I think, the only way, and the white looks really clean too.
All white with a white.
All white
lid,
looks
though,
pretty good.
Like the Bengals ones that are all.
Well,
white
that's
with,
Texas football. Yeah. Texas football is that they're all white the whole way through.
Good,
That is a good look for sure. But you can't do that with every color. Like the Jaguars do this in that all teal, which is god awful.
What about when they were doing it in their color rush? It was like baby diarrhea yellow.
Yeah, that was terrible. Like to me, the only team in the NFL that should go all one color is the Ravens because a Raven is black.
Yeah, I like that.
Like that's it. Nobody else should be going monochrome head to toe.
And
there's no breakup even. Like this is what they did with the Patriots uniform too. Like the sock matches the pant. Like there's not a stripe on the sock. There's not a breakup of the sock and the pant. So the white one looks great. It's a cardinal. Bless you. They seem to be married to that, putting that little bird on the side of the hat. So once you do that, you're kind of limited to what you can do.
Why no stripe on the pant though?
But only on the red. I don't understand.
I don't get that because the stripe looks great on the
red
white
uniform.
And the
looks
black.
like a one-off. It looks like it's from a different set of uniforms that were designed. The black one and the white one look like this is a family of uniforms that are together. The red one looks like hey, I like the one you did with that group. Let's throw that in.
The black one, honest to God, looks like the Ohio State blackouts.
It does, very much does. Yeah,
which is, by the way, a great looking uniform.
That's fine.
But the red's awful.
The red's terrible.
It's awful. I
swear, red.
This is what you do. Solved. Ready?
Yeah.
You wear the black at home.
Mm-hmm.
You wear the white on the road.
Yep.
And then your alternate is the Pat Tillman.
Oh yeah,
and that's it. That's your whole catalog. Done.
Then you're out. Yeah. I don't know why you think this. Why I don't know why the red one happened.
The red. They should never wear it.
No, never.
It's awful.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
strange.
awful. But,
so the next one to do this is going to be the Lions. They're doing this next year, and I saw some comments from their head honcho who was saying that they're looking to do kind of a dramatic rethinking of the brand. Be careful.
The Lions are?
Yeah, be careful.
What do you mean by that?
Ask him, not me. But they're getting new uniforms in 2024, and they're rethinking the brand. It'll still be in the blue and gray color scheme.
Okay.
But there's an opportunity to rethink the brand.
They're not going to be the Lions?
No, they're going to
anymore?
be the Lions. They're going to be blue and gray. But in terms of the look, they're talking about dramatically changing it.
Why don't you just bring back that old Lion logo?
Of course.
It's awesome.
Yeah. It's all pretty simple. I think, unfortunately, they're judged because of their futility as opposed to the look, because the look's clean. There's no issue with the look.
Yeah.
So they'll be the next ones to get something done on that front. All right. Coming up next, AB breaking down horses and geese, among other things.
Yes.
We're off and running. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And there's a new way to cheer on your Cleveland Browns with the help of your favorite four-legged companion, Barking Backers, presented by Milkbone, the Browns' newest club for pet parents worldwide. Sign up today at barkingbackers.com. Barking Backers, the fan club for dogs. And now the podium, our general manager, Andrew Berry. Let's have a listen.
In terms of your off-season free agency,
you're down.
How much in what you were able to add and address, how much did that shift your priorities heading into the draft?
You know, Tom, it would be disingenuous to say that it doesn't have some impact, but we do really look at those two specific ways to acquire players, a little bit differently. Certainly free agency is about, filling immediate needs. The draft, we look at it as more longer term planning and ultimately trying to maximize talent. And I think especially when you're in the situation that we're in, where we're picking, later in the draft respectively, it's not like we can really dictate it. When you're at the top of the draft, you can dictate it to a degree. And so I think it's important for us to be really to remain flexible and make sure that like our first priority is maximizing the talent we can add to the team.
I know you always have a long-term vision, but isn't it about now, given what the moves you guys made last year and then the expectations for this coming season?
I think probably every general manager in the sport, you has to really, and you've heard me say this, have a foot in the present and a foot in the future. And that really won't change now. Maybe how much of your body is leaning present versus future, may change as either your team matures or ages out, or if they're really young. And certainly, we believe we have a group of players that should allow us to be competitive in the fall. But that doesn't mean that you punt or don't consider future years in your planning.
Update us on the Perry and Winfrey situation.
Yeah, so Jeff, that's it's a pending legal matter, so I won't comment specifically on that, other than to say that Perion understands what really our expectations for all players, whether they're on the field in our building or away from the building. But with it being a pending legal matter, I'm not going to comment too much on it.
Can you just say whether he's here?
Yeah, so we haven't made any changes in terms of his roster status or anything like that, but I'm not going to say anything further.
Is that something you consider when there's an allegation like this, Andrew? And is it something that you'll still consider depending on what other information comes out?
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but we'll deal with that matter internally and make the appropriate decision for the organization.
It looks like you addressed, from the outside, all your starter needs, across the board. But can you count on rookies, depending on where you're drafting, to fill up some of the rotation or depth needs, or do you feel like you could still do more?
So I would, one thing to say, like Bill Pullen always used to say when I was a scouting assistant, your needs today aren't your needs tomorrow. So I don't know that I ever feel, really settled in terms of addressing needs. Ideally, you want to be in a position as a roster where you're not relying on rookies to have major roles. Now, look, every roster in the NFL will have strengths and weaknesses. There's no perfect roster, and there are going to be spots where maybe you rely a little bit more on younger players than organizationally you desire. But we really want to make sure that as we're in maybe this life cycle of the team, we're in a position where younger players can maybe integrate into the NFL and develop in the NFL at probably maybe more of an appropriate pace.
You're not picking until round 3.
Mm-hmm.
How much did you learn from the process going through it last year? And, how much do you feel like you're better? Even not to say you weren't prepared last year, but you're even more prepared this year.
Yeah, I think it's less about like a reflection from last year necessarily, Daryl, and I think the circumstances for why we're picking in, why our first pick, at least as of today, is in the third round are different. Last year, we felt compelled to move back because we liked the group of players, obviously starting with Martin in that range of the draft, and we thought we were able to pick up additional assets that that would help us from a volume perspective with that draft. And this year we were opportunistic at the wide receiver position. I can't say that like we went into this season saying that hey we weren't going to, or into this offseason saying that we were going to have a second round pick. I can't say thought that even last year. So maybe the learning, so to speak, is just about remaining flexible and open-minded as things develop, because we want to be organized and have a plan, moving forward, but plans change, and it never goes 100% according to plan. And if you don't have enough flexibility or ability to pivot, you can't be too dogmatic and too stubborn, because then you're going to be in a tough spot.
Andrew, how would you compare the talent level right now of the team overall to when you first got here in 2020?
We're pleased with the progress of the team, Jake. I wouldn't say otherwise. I think, we like a lot of the guys that we've added over the past couple years, and feel fortunate to have been able to retain a lot of the guys that have grown over the past 3 years. I don't know that I have a direct objective comparison for you, to be honest, just because, quite honestly, we haven't hit the grass yet. But I think all 32 teams are probably pretty optimistic at this time of year. We certainly are with the group of individuals that we currently have in the locker room, and view this upcoming week as a chance to add to that group.
Do you feel 5 defensive ends are enough to go into camp with?
No, I would expect us to add more to that. Look, we're going to get to 90 eventually. I can't say if that's going to be on draft weekend or in May or in August, but I would expect us to add to that room.
Are you ruling out veteran?
I wouldn't rule out anything. I think one thing I've been pretty consistent about, Tony, is that any way that we can acquire someone who can help the team, that we'll be open-minded to, as long as it matches our priorities and it matches the resources we have at our disposal.
We had trades during the previous drafts. How much of that is this is how we want to run the draft, and how much of it is you just made a call or got a call and it came together?
Honestly, it's a little bit of a mix, with both. There have been certain points where we thought, based on what we anticipated the board to look like, where we might have been looking for an escape hatch, or been maybe interested in trading up. But there are plenty of other situations where it's okay, we have a player that we like, and then you get a call a couple picks away, or on Friday or Saturday, morning or early afternoon. It's hey, here's an opportunity that we had discussed in generalities when we were doing our strategy planning, but we didn't necessarily anticipate would actually come available to us, and then you consider it a little bit differently.
When you go in, Andrew, when you go in for Deshaun, you're going basically all in there. To me, when you're drafting third round down, these, like you said, those kind of long-term things, how do you feel about those immediate needs that you had to address? And if you could talk about a couple of the players that you picked up in free agency. And
yeah, we like the group of guys that we brought in. I guess I'll start with the defensive lineman. Dalvin, we think he has a very well-rounded skill set to really anchor the middle line of scrimmage for us. Scheme versatile player that has played in an even front, has played in an odd front. We really like the fit with us. Obo, he's a athletic, quick, speed rusher for us, that really fits the mold of players that we like at defensive end. Juan, who we signed, classic free safety, cornerback round, good ball skills. Obviously has played with a really strong secondary in Kansas City. Look, there are a number of guys that we add to the receiver room. Whether it's Marquise Goodwin, who adds vertical speed for us, Elijah Moore, who we traded for, that we think has a very diverse skill set, really excellent hands, and Jordan Akins, who he's a really good tight end that we think can be a mismatch in the passing game. And I know I've mentioned a number of guys. There are some that I'm probably not necessarily highlighting, but
with the receivers, the tight end, does that allow you to maybe open things up a little more on offense?
I think it's the more skill sets that you have with your pass catchers, the more diversity that you can add to your offense, for sure. We are excited about the group of playmakers that we currently have. That doesn't mean that we can't add to it over the coming months, but we think we have a good group right now.
It's been reported by websites that you had 3 quarterbacks come in on their 30 visits. What's the feeling behind that, and how interested are you in adding to the room?
So I guess, number one, 30 visits in general for us, Tony, it's about accumulating more information. So I think that teams use them in different ways, and for us, as we think through what usually ends up being about 125 guys on the board, we just want to make sure that we have everything on all the guys, because you just don't know what the possibilities are going to be that the individual falls to you. Certainly with quarterbacks, we like to spend a lot of time with them, and we try and do that appropriately over the course of the spring in different venues. To your specific question about adding to the room, it's the most important position in sports, and no different than adding depth and competition at receiver or D line or corner or linebacker or offensive line. We're going to do the same thing at quarterback.
Very steadfast in your time here with the draft and develop philosophy with your young guys. I think you've only cut one draft pick over the last 4 off seasons here. Does this roster have room, the 53-man roster in your mind, have room for 8 rookie draft picks in it with just where this team is right now?
Darryl, I don't know that I could make that comment today. I think, like in generalities, yes, if they perform. But I think each year's a little bit different in that regard. And honestly, like, who knows? Like, you get wiped out because of injury in camp, or a guy surprises you in either direction. It may change how you think about adding you to the roster. So we don't really go into it with the mentality of, okay, like, can 7 or 8 guys make the team? How does that dictate the draft strategy? And look, I mean, last year we entered the draft with, I believe, 7 picks and ended up with 9. There are some years that we start off with 7 and ended up with 6. So I think a lot can happen between certainly now and the end of the weekend, but also now and the start of the season.
In terms of your running back position, with Kareem being gone right now, how do you view the room? How do you view drafting one even at 74? And also, has the door completely shut on Kareem coming back, considering he's still out there?
Yeah, I'll answer your last question first. I don't know that we've necessarily shut the door on anything. I mean, we're not playing games till September, so we'll remain open-minded to anything that can help the team. We like the room that we have. Obviously Nick leads it. Pleased with Jerome's progress over the last year, and John, Kelly, McCreary, Dimitri, taking reps there. We feel like we have a variety of skill sets that wouldn't exclude us from adding someone this upcoming weekend, at that position. But we just got to see how the board shakes out.
Sorry. When you make a trade like you did for Elijah Moore, what kind of factors do you weigh in making that decision to give up that pick or essentially move back?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Dan. I think there are a couple things. I think certainly in no particular positional value and need, right? Does it actually fit with how your roster is currently constructed? The scarcity of the skill set for the particular player. And then I would say, like, both the resource cost and the financial cost. And for us, with Elijah, we saw a guy who was a 22-year-old receiver, could separate, had speed, good hands, would fit his skill set would fit a need that we thought we had on the roster. And he's still on his rookie deal.
30.
We thought the draft pick compensation was appropriate while still maintaining our volume in 2023. So we thought it was a good fit for us, a good opportunity for us. Like I've mentioned before, I can't say that we foresaw that maybe coming into January, February, but it was just a place where we thought we could be opportunistic and match resources to opportunities.
You're up.
All right, there's part 1 with AB from his pre-draft presser from earlier. We'll play the second part a little bit later in the program. Coming up next, it's a little bit of a mailbag. How about that?
Oh, man.
Nope.
McLean's all about
No,
it.
still not.
Same to me.
It does. Hit it again. That's Gibby screwing with you. It's got to be. Oh, he got you. That's what that is.
Welcome to Friday.
Be a pro.
I still don't know if you're on.
Oh, hold on.
Listen,
How about now? You want to talk now? There you go. I just figured Bo would throw
you
it
can
to
talk
break.
about me taking
You can
another
still
Friday
play
off.
the-
You're putting my mic down. Why,
I mean, why is he here?
Why am I here?
You can play 9 holes.
Sure.
That'd be a 4th straight Friday.
So instead, you're going to have me come here and then mute me, so it's the same effect.
Yep.
It's genius.
Yep.
You really got me.
Just making you drive in.
Yeah.
Oh, God. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Experience full throttle family fun at Monster Jam. World-class athletes, 12,000-pound monster trucks tear up the dirt in wide-open competition. Speed, skill. Witness massive stunts, big air bat flips, fierce head-to-head battles for the event championship. The most action-packed motorsports experience for families in the world today comes to Cleveland Browns Stadium on Saturday, June 3rd. Through today, you can purchase a family 4-pack for $80. Use offer code MJ4PACK. For more info, go to clevelandbrownsstadium.com. Little Mailbag Friday, give it.
We didn't get to it yesterday, so why not knock it out a little bit today?
Let's go.
Enough from the clown. Gibby, stop trying to thwart the big B.
Thank you.
That's how you get blocked, clown. Let's see. At AKMan42, we know your go-to movie snack is popcorn, but do you add anything besides butter and salt? I love me some black pepper and Parmesan, maybe even a handful of Cheez-Its. Popcorn seasoning. Well, how about it?
Well, how about it?
Bet there'll be a lot of that this weekend at your bromance down in Florida.
It's going to be great. Yeah, there should be a lot of it. We'll see. We'll see. Sometimes, those are for a time and a place. Well, how about it, though, has a lot of staying power. More so than he doesn't like you. I don't like you either. That's a real specific set of circumstances. You need to drop that one.
That escalates things.
Oh, very quickly.
So what do you like on your popcorn?
Butter and salt. The end.
I was going to say, I don't do
anything else.
Cheez-Its intrigues me. Don't get me wrong.
I don't think I would do it. I don't ever mix anything with it.
I don't like cheesy popcorn. When I was a child,
small child,
I enjoyed a caramel corn.
Oh yeah, I bet it would hold up now. I bet if you had like a Cracker Jack or something like that.
Yes,
the one's actually better than Cracker Jack. What is the one that's in the yellow?
Yeah, in the tin. Is that what you're talking about?
It's a yellow and red type of Cracker Jack, but it's anyway.
I just feel like it might feel like my teeth were just falling apart due to sugar.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Disintegrating in my mouth.
I don't know. Everything I see says Cracker Jack, Cracker Jack.
Yeah, it's not that. It's like Munchies or something like that.
Jake, while you guys are looking, Jake Grove tweets at the show, Traeger pork loin idea. Slice the pork loin lengthwise. Spread spicy mustard, cheddar cheese, pickled jalapenos, and barbecue rub of choice. Roll up, tie, season the outside. Put it on the Traeger at 275 to 300 until the internal temp is 150.
It sounds delicious.
Sounds great. Good job out of you.
It sounds fantastic. I probably wouldn't go with the cheese, but the jalapenos sound delightful. Is it Pornocopolis? Popcornocopolis?
Something I had as a kid. I'll find it.
Crunch and Munch?
That's it. Crunch and Munch.
Yeah, dude.
So good.
Wow.
Crunch and Munch was solid.
Crunch and Munch was awesome.
Crunch and Munch was.
And there's some peanuts in there.
Big time peanuts in there.
Yeah,
it's a buttery caramel.
Yeah,
and that's a real treat. Crunch and Munch.
Crunch and Munch.
Draft question for you. Would you rather the Browns trade away picks for future picks or move up in this year's draft?
Move up. I'm greedy. Weapons now.
I would like to trade all of day 3 for 1 in the second.
Move up. I'm greedy. Weapons
I'm
now.
greedy.
The time is now. Go, go, go. Foot in the present. Foot in the...
Swarm.
Would you give up your this entire draft? Like, would you do the Ditka? Give up your entire draft, all 8 picks
for Will Anderson
to go into the first round to get Will Anderson,
yeah,
or whoever you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, right.
For
sure. So anytime we talk, you can't give up a draft pick. Really?
We're marrying
watch
this
me.
down to draft picks.
Watch me. I'd give it all up. Okay, take Will Anderson off the board. Take the Tyree Wilson guy off the board. Take Jalen Carter off the board. Would you move it all up for that guy?
No.
Non-quarterback position guy.
No, it would have to be I'd have to feel like it was the surest of things because we have a lot of guys that we're paying big money to, so you need rookies who can play.
Yeah.
And by the way, the number 1 overall pick salary is not so cheap either.
No, but it wouldn't be 1 would you move into if you moved into
you go 4,
6,
like Tennessee, for example, at 11, like your whole draft for 11.
I don't know about that.
I probably
or
would.
at least trade the 6th and the 7th round.
Get rid of all of them.
Yeah. Jersey Dog, hello boys. Usually I'm a very positive person, but I'm channeling my inner Gibby, and thus the question: what is your Mount Rushmore of sports figures you hate? or Loathe. Mine are John Elway, Horseface, Big Ben, Hugh Jackson, Art Modell. We're just nuking bodies on a Friday. I didn't say it.
Boy.
I didn't say it. The Jersey Dog said it.
Jeez, Jersey Dog.
Oh, that was, you were reading that.
I was reading it was a mailbag question.
The way that it was presented
you said
made it seem
mine.
like mine
Yeah, like as in
were
Gibby. Yeah.
Gibby's.
No. 3 of those 4, yes. 1, maybe a runner-up.
Oh, my goodness. I would say I don't know that I like anymore. I just like when I was a kid, I hated Larry Bird because I was a Lakers fan. So
fair.
What? I was, yeah, for sure. When I was a kid, I hated everything about the Celtics.
I hated Michael Jordan.
Yeah, they were the roadblock,
yes.
right? So I didn't like him, but then I came to love him. I don't know, Draymond is really hateable, although I have his side in being suspended. I think that was ridiculous. I don't like that dude who plays for Memphis at all. That Dylan Brooks guy. I don't like that guy one bit.
I don't care. I mean,
that guy sucks.
He's like a fly.
Right.
All right, hold on. I've got 3. I got to try to get a fourth.
Like total cruds.
So I just couldn't.
Most of it's from my youth.
Loathed.
I couldn't stand Elway as a kid because so many people in Montana were Broncos fans because of the proximity.
Yeah.
And because at that point you got the AFC, we were at the NBC, ABC, AFC package, so you got the Broncos every Sunday.
Got the Dick
and
Enberg, Merlin Olsen.
So much Dick Enberg. Don Criqui.
Oh, and Trumpy.
Trumpy and Criqui. I
made
get
fun
those
of
guys.
Trumpy when I lived in Illinois and didn't realize he's from there and his mom was listening.
Oh, geez.
Mom was not pleased. I was like, look, I hate your son, just so we're clear.
But yeah, those were the ones when I was a kid because they were they were good.
Yeah.
And you saw them all the time.
What are some...
Wait, who are yours?
Hold on.
Let's get to yours.
Hold on.
Oh,
all
right. Well,
Go ahead.
pontificating. Let's go.
Number 1 for sure, and I don't know why,
but
I couldn't stand him. I still can't stand him. Meat Cleaves. I couldn't stand
I couldn't stand him
Mateen
either.
I hated everything about him. I
didn't like Mateen Cleaves either.
That's
That's weird because I don't have any problem with Michigan State.
Me neither. It was literally singularly him.
Yeah.
Drove me completely insane.
I don't have a problem with that.
Did not like him at all. Kendall Gill.
Kendall Gill?
Yeah.
Why? Because he was
the
drafted
Hornets drafted him to replace Rex. And all of a sudden they're playing him and he's no Rex.
No, he's no Rex. Yeah.
He had a nice left-handed dunk here and there. Great athlete. Handsome fella.
Yeah.
But, no. Steve Young, for sure.
The least surprising thing ever.
And then I was trying to come up with a fourth. I don't know that I don't have like a fourth.
There really wasn't a foil for the 49ers. Oh, what about...
Even I didn't hate him. I hate that moment.
Yeah.
But I didn't hate Kirk Gibson. I like those Tigers teams. They had Kirk Gibson, Alan Trammell, and Sweet Lou Whitaker.
Yeah.
Sweet Lou.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3. One more still to be determined. I don't have that. Oh, you know what I'd say? Because I got into it with him, and we had he had them give me at a Cavs game a card, like a yellow card, to be like, if you say anything else, then you could be out, because I was all up in his head.
Yeah.
Joakim Noah.
Really? He was hateable.
He and I had a great back and forth.
I couldn't stand Karl Malone either as a kid. I hated the way he played, the mailman. The whole thing bugged me.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like him.
What about John Stockton?
That
the
aged
pasty
well,
gangsta.
by the way.
Well,
Karl Malone, not a great guy. Not a great human. Not a great human.
Yeah.
And he was just okay with that.
He was saying
he was just fine
with it. Yeah. Yeah.
I also didn't love Bill Laimbeer, and I think partially because my dad liked him so much.
That was easy to hate. Of course, Pedro loved Bill Laimbeer. Good God. Yeah. You couldn't be more type. Bill Laimbeer was as hateable as anybody.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Totally. Yeah. I think Meat Cleaves, Steve Young, Kendall Gill, though, that's a pretty good trio.
Yeah.
And I don't know that anybody else in the world would have that trio.
No, very unique. Very unique.
Feels unique. I was trying to think of a golfer that I hated, but nobody really got after
Colin
John
Montgomery.
David. But I never hated him that much.
No.
And then I started to feel bad for him. He looked like Mrs. Doubtfire. He was supposed to win all these majors, and he couldn't win.
Yeah. I didn't love David Duval.
Yeah, he flamed out.
Yeah.
He put the hex on him.
Couple quick questions from Bobby. Literally in like 30 seconds.
My other
rapid
sports
fire.
Mount Rushmore probably is a guy that was on my high school basketball team. I won't give his name.
There's a lot of those people
for
I hate.
sure. Is,
yeah.
Yeah.
Aside from necessities, what's one thing you could not go a day without?
Next.
Next.
When did you first feel like an adult?
Same. All right, second hour of the program coming up next. Andrew Barry's press conference.
What
we
are
continue.
these questions, Gibby? What are you doing?
That was from
We
Bobby.
continue with our
Bobby.
lots of getting us in trouble on a Friday. We'll continue our look around the league with Houston. A lot of interesting chatter
We needed
about
the 5
what they
Ds of
could do
dodgeball right there.
at 2. You did, yeah. What the Texans could do too. The General will join us at the bottom of the hour. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. When a medical mistake causes you injury, call the medical malpractice attorneys at 1-800-ELK Ohio. Elk & Elk's proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Time now for part 2 of General Manager Andrew Berry's pre-draft press conference. Let's have a listen.
Coming to the tail end of that
You're down.
extra COVID year, a lot of kids had, college guys had. How has that impacted sort of the way the lens through which you evaluate guys, especially on the older end of the scale?
Yeah, I think we had talked about this maybe a little bit at the combine where, age isn't the end all be all. We try and make sure that we apply context to any player on our board or any player that we may draft. So we wouldn't necessarily treat, a COVID senior in the same way that we would, 5 or 6 years ago. Each situation is specific to the person. So I guess maybe long-winded way of saying that we take it on a case-by-case basis.
Joshua Dobbs back. I mean, how important was that for that room, especially given his long-term relationship with Deshaun?
Yeah, I think that was a big one for us. Like backup quarterback, I think as everyone has seen over the past 3 seasons, has been something that we've prioritized. Again, it's the most important position in sports. Having Case in 20 and 21, having Jacoby last year, you just never know. And Josh is a guy that we felt very comfortable with his development last year. We know his makeup. The relationship between the starter and backup is really important in that room. So we really thought that he really fit like a glove.
Decision on picking up Judd Will's 5th-year option.
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah, I think that I don't really talk about contracts or those decisions in this setting. You guys will certainly know before May 2nd, and we're pleased with Jed.
I was just going to say, at linebacker, with so many of your guys coming off of their injuries, we don't really know exactly where like a JOK is right now. But given their situations, how do you feel about where they stand heading into camp? And then also, is that a position that you kind of have to fortify because of that?
All of our guys who are suffered injury at the linebacker room, they've done a phenomenal job with their rehab. We feel like they're all pacing well and appropriately in the recovery from their injuries, and think they're going to be ready to go. That being said, look, we'll always look to add competition, and that room's not excluded from that. Certainly there is historically a little bit of variance in terms of how guys do come back from injuries. We're not naive to that fact, but that all being said, with the progress that those individuals have made, we're very pleased at this point in time.
Up and back, in drafts previously. But given the state of the roster, do you think you're more inclined to trade up from number 74 than you would be perhaps with a different state of your roster?
It's a good question, Scott. I think it's more situationally dependent on how the board falls, quite honestly, and then ultimately what's the acquisition cost to move up from 74 to the 3rd pick in the draft, something like that. But I wouldn't say that there's a hard and fast rule, but generally speaking, because we look at the draft more through a long-term lens, we probably in general would be more apt to move back than necessarily move up. But I wouldn't say that we would be exclusively tied to that decision-making thought process.
With last year, not having an early pick, when did Martin become the idea of landing him? When did that kind of crystallize? Was that something heading into the draft? You're okay, this is a guy, or was it day 2 kind of?
Yeah, no, he was a guy that we had identified as being a player that we certainly liked and being a player that could be around our selection of picks. I think I forget who I was talking about this with yesterday. When you think of a draft board, hey, we may have 125 players, and you may like a lot of them, but the reality is the subset of players that you actually end up focusing on is even smaller than that, because hey, look, I love Will Anderson, but and if he drops to 74, we'll take him, but we know that's not gonna happen. So as you think about, okay, who are the players that we really like, could actually be available at our picks, and you would match based on how you value certain positions or certain player risk profiles, whether it's skill set injury, whatever, all that plays into it. So going back to Martin, he was one of those players for us that even probably before we traded out of 44, that we thought we would have potentially a chance at a day 2, and that we really liked, and then fortunately just kind of worked out when we traded back.
Off Scott's question a little bit, to where you're at in the roster building process here. In fact, you have 8 picks. Where those 8 picks are, can you maybe have the luxury of maybe taking a shot on a guy more so this year than maybe in years past, as far as your particular draft guidelines that you normally use?
It's a good question, Daryl. Maybe the best way to say, I don't know that I would think of as our roster status as being so unique that we would pivot significantly from, the type of risks that we think are appropriate at certain rounds versus not. I think that's probably hopefully that answers your question. I think that's probably the best way I can articulate it.
You always like to kind of use that need agnostic phrase when describing the offseason. But I mean, to kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier, with you address some of these needs in free agency, like, do you guys feel more free to kind of go after the guys you really like now, or does it not change the philosophy at all? Do you think?
I think we would approach it. I don't want to suggest that it's literally you operate in a vacuum. There is some interaction, but it's not so much that, or our belief has been, it's not so much that. Look, you want to come out of the draft with good players, unique players, special traits, and that's the overarching philosophy. Because I think the reality of it is, if you're in a position where you're looking for a rookie to fill a need in year 1, that's really not an ideal position to be in. And I think probably every roster in some degree does have some of that, because there are only so many players and you have fixed resources. But we want to try our best to make sure that we're not in those spots. So we don't want to be so rigid that we end up passing up a good player just because we think we can select a guy that can fill a perceived need, or the perception that the individual can fill a need.
When you look at Andrew, when you look at, say, 3rd, 4th, 5th rounders, what percentage of those guys actually become NFL starters? And you could define it, 30 NFL starts or something like that.
It's actually a very small percent. And I won't quote the exact percentage, but it's a very small percent. You're probably a little bit more inclined to get, let's say rotational players or high level backups. Now that's not to say that you don't shoot or try and organize your board or organize the amount of draws that you can have for more than that. But it also probably is a reason for us where, as we get into, let's say, the middle rounds or the later rounds, we really do look for individuals or players that have, unique characteristics, whether it's a skill or a trait. My scouts will laugh. I'll tell you the story. We always talk about horses versus goose, and goose, it can walk. It can fly, it can run, but it kind of waddles when it walks. It doesn't really fly really high, and it doesn't run real fast. A horse, it can't swim, it can't fly, but it's a really great runner. And it's okay, if we were talking about players, we would take horse traits. We call them horse traits, because it's okay, hey, if we're putting together a roster, we'd ideally like a player that can be above average. In some way, even if it's a very narrow sense, because then when you put together the team, the aggregate allows you to maybe to cover the skill set you have. And maybe a perfect example of that would be in the receiver room, right? Marquise Goodwin's, he's a smaller guy, but he's got elite speed and really good tracking ability. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's a bigger, stronger receiver, maybe not quite as fast as some of the others, but he's got great hands and great size. And you can combine those skill sets within that position group, and give yourself enough diversity in the offense to execute a number of different concepts.
Is it for Jakeem Grant to return, to come back and be your returner this year, or do you have to be thinking about that spot?
I think it's very realistic. No different than offense or defense. We would add competition in the kicking game. I would really like to commend Jakeem in terms of how he's approached his rehab since last August. He stayed in the building all season. He's been, he may sleep at the building, honestly, and he's doing really, really well. And I know all of us are optimistic that he'll be back to his normal self, and we're all really rooting for him.
Go back to Mary Kay's linebackers question. I mean, to get Sione and Anthony back, I know they still have some ways to go with their rehab, but Anthony, just his communication ability, how key that'll be to installing a new defense, and Sione, the way he kind of took that jump last year.
Yeah, I think, and Anthony in particular, I think everybody who has been around the team understands how important he is in terms of not only his play, but his leadership and communication skills. So I think that one speaks for itself. And with Sione, I think the added experience that he was able to get last season, playing multiple spots and doing a really nice job until he got hurt. The silver lining to the injuries is that we enter this year with more depth in terms of that communicator spot. So we're very excited to have both of those individuals back on the team.
Why don't we close with you, Chris?
You talked about risk assessment. When you're dealing with players, and there are going to be various red flags on a lot of prospects for various reasons. How do you handle
that
and
yeah,
what you do,
yeah,
the various.
Yeah, so it's a good question, Chris. I think we go into being realistic that every player or staff member that we bring into the organization will have different strengths or weaknesses, different professional strengths and weaknesses, different personal strengths and weaknesses. Part of our job organizationally, with the resources we have at our disposal and the support staff that we hire, is to be able to support individuals, and that's not just supporting players through the on-field development process, but ultimately when we get to a point whether a player is successful or unsuccessful on the field with us, we like them whenever they do leave the organization, whether
30
in years, for them not to only have improved as players, but also to have improved as people and professionals. And that's an area where we've invested a lot of resources, a lot of headcount. We're not an organization of perfect people, and we never will be. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we do everything in our power to make sure that people are supported and developed while they're under our.
You're up.
All right, so what he's looking for, he's married to horse traits, so that's what he's looking for. So he needs something opposite of horse, because without the context, I was thinking he started with the goose and he was trying to find a parallel for the goose.
No,
it's the opposite. He's trying to find the opposite of a horse. He should have gone donkey. Would have been the analogy there. That would have been the appropriate one between a horse and donkey.
Donkeys though have some
very
significantly positive traits, though, right? Aren't they like
mules are more elite. The donkey mule situation.
I'll ride on a cliff with a mule.
Sure you will.
And
sure-footed.
Very sure-footed.
Good job out of you. Always paying attention.
That's right.
Always paying attention.
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but when you go to Yosemite, if you go on some of the you can take the mules up to Half Dome or whatever, and you're walking on cliffs.
Yep.
And it's mules, and they're.
That's why they with Grand Canyon take those guys down there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
How can they be so sure-footed? They seem like such oddly shaped animals.
Only the head.
And
everything
the
else is pretty
like a teardrop.
Pretty athletic. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we'll continue our tour around the NFL with Houston and the Texans. A lot of drama around that pick number 2 in the draft. The General will join us in about 15 minutes. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Valley Bet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, the Houston Texans, and really the draft, it feels like, starts with them at number 2 overall. We'll get to the General John McLean in just a second, but we start with a look at the Texans. We are pretty firm on the uniforms with the Texans and have been a pretty a complete. And by the way, like if the Titans won't give them the Oilers, and if the Titans won't give them that specific color of light blue, just pick a light blue.
Just make it.
Right. There's another Pantone somewhere.
You can even keep that blue
whatever
on
it is.
the whatever.
Yeah. But just go with that light blue color, and that would be a step in
the steer on the helmet. But just put it all in that color.
Yeah.
Like, why is it so red, white, and blue?
Yeah. I don't know. I think they were mimicking the Texas flag, right? Because even the steer on the helmet looks like the Texas flag.
But they shouldn't be the Houston Texans.
No, they
We've
should
talked
not.
about how many times how silly that is.
How silly that is. Yeah.
Like, could you imagine if the Trailblazers were the Portland Oregonians? I mean, it's just, it's idiotic.
No. Cleveland Ohioans?
Right. The Atlanta Georgians?
Odd, yeah. Stadium. I've never been.
Great stadium.
Is it great?
I've been for WrestleMania. I've been for the game, although the booth is 8,000 feet in the sky.
Yeah.
It's as far away as you could possibly be from
It's
a football
huge,
field.
right?
Massive.
It is
dome.
a cavern.
Yeah, it's
not
huge.
one of my favorites.
But is it bigger than the Astrodome? I know it sits bigger, but the Astrodome's underground, a lot of it. So I wonder which is bigger.
Never in the Astrodome.
That's a good question.
I'm going to ask
Bo.
Mr. McLean that. He'll know.
I love that I get to see the Astrodome every time we go there.
Yeah, but it's just
right
all
next
that's
door.
it's just the roof that's all that's kind of
shells.
shown, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't because it's dug into the ground.
Yeah.
I think they still do a rodeo there.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah. Road trip to Houston. I don't have a lot of Houston experience.
There's
a lot of Tex-Mex.
Good food. It's a massive, sprawling city. Like, it's just, it's massive. But it's cool. Houston's cool.
That's one of those where it takes us like an hour to get to the airport
hate
after
it.
a game.
It takes us an hour to get to the stadium from the
that's
hotel, and then an
that's
hour from the
annoying.
stadium to the airport. It's a rotten trip.
Yeah.
We don't get home until like 10.
I do like
and we play a 1
I
o'clock.
do like their airport. Their airport historically has been good to me.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a
It feels like it's a big,
Bobby?
good airport. Like you can zip around.
IAH.
Yeah, which is an odd one, but yeah, I
Yeah, the
International
city's.
Airport, Houston.
I don't know if we've
Yes.
ever had a night out in the city because we like kick. It's that noon kick that
It's a noon
screws
kick.
it all up.
But where we stay, we can like walk to whatever we need to get.
Isn't that like Papa Do's and all that? Aren't they big in that
Yeah,
area?
Big Papa Do's, yeah.
We're right by the Galleria,
We're
which
right
is
at
the
the
big
Galleria.
mall there.
Must thing to do on a road trip. Type into your Google search James Harden Houston, and you'll get all of the information you'll need on what to do in Houston. Player you want from their current roster? Jeez, I got to pull it up.
Well, it's a who's who of former Browns.
I know. Well, Money's not there anymore, is he?
No,
Is MJ Stewart still there?
Money Mitch. MJ Stewart is there. Yeah, Money Mitch would be a great call. Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
Weapons. They also have, who's actually very good for them? Brandon Cooks would be if there was an offensive player. I mean, okay,
Laramie Tunsil's pretty good.
Yeah, Laramie Tunsil would be one. And then
I feel like the Stingley kid's going to go at corner at some point.
And their
kid out of LSU.
Their safety, Jalen Petrie, 5 picks.
Yeah.
Wasn't he a rookie last year?
Yeah. Yep. They had Petrie in the second round and Stingley in the first.
Yeah, Petrie's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good player. I think Laramie Tunsil's the answer.
Yeah, that's probably it.
I think Laramie Tunsil's the answer. He was their only Pro Bowler.
All-time favorite Houston Texan?
Andre Johnson, the big dude.
Yeah.
And J.J.
Hopkins
Watt.
was really good.
J.J. Watt.
Watt was
Hopkins. good. Arian Foster, from a fantasy perspective, for a few years.
Deshaun Watson.
Was darn good. Deshaun Watson. Arian Foster is kind of Priest Holmes-like in that he had a very small run.
Of a dominance.
But his run was...
J.J. Watt, simply from the moment that we hosted them a few years back, and we're like, cold weather, snow, it's going to really bother them. They're playing a dome. And he came out for like warm-ups in like a T-shirt and shorts, and like did snow angels. And I was
Pretty sure he
like,
played tight end and caught a
well,
touchdown
this might actually be a bad thing for us.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not
matter of
scared
fact, it affected us more than it affected the team coming from the dome.
Arian Foster, 2010, 1,616 yards rushing to lead the league, 16 touchdowns, 5 yards a carry. Finished with 2,000. He also had 66 catches for 604 yards and 2 scores. Led the league with 2,220 scrimmage yards and 18 touchdowns. He would have 4 seasons with more than 1,600 scrimmage yards and 12 touchdowns. 4 seasons. That's pretty good.
Yeah, the Priest Holmes, there's a lot there with the parallels.
He also is the one who exposed that the NFL is completely scripted.
Oh, that's right. All the games are scripted. They are not a contender in any way, although I do think if they do this right, they could get good
quickly.
Relatively quickly.
Yep.
The biggest offseason trader edition will happen next week when they figure out what they're going to do at number 2 overall. And for some perspective on that, we're joined next by a man who will know, the general himself. John McLean will join us. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Our off-season tour continues with a visit to Houston, and when you go to Houston, the person you'd like to talk to if you had it your way is the general. It is John McLean. He's from GallerySports.com, Sports Radio 610. He's as good as it gets. Let's be honest about it. He joins us via the Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea Hotline, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Mr. McLean, before we get into the NFL side of it, we were having a discussion about the stadium situation down there, and I posed the question to my guys who have both been to the current stadium the Texans play in: is it bigger than the Astrodome in terms of size? Because where the Astrodome is buried, I felt like you would know. Is it?
Oh yeah, it's a lot bigger than the Astrodome. The Astrodome, when you look at them from Loop 610, which is the main entrance, it looks like the Astrodome is half the size, because half the Astrodome is built underground and into the ground. And so, but NRG Stadium seats about 72. The Astrodome seated 60. And as far as the square footage, it's larger as well. And but yeah, it's a lot of people, it's been described as NRG Stadium and its parking garage.
There you go. All right, to the football, and it does feel like this draft now is going to start at number 2 with the Houston Texans. I saw your mock draft from last night that has Houston going defensive end. It feels like there's a lot of momentum for that. Is that something that most recently has changed, or did you feel like this was the way that they were thinking all along?
In my last 2 mock drafts, I've had them taking Will Anderson Jr. They could take Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher from Texas Tech. He's also a top 5 or 6 prospect. It just depends if you want a pure edge rusher who flies off the edge, or if you want a bigger guy. Will Anderson's about 245, a bigger guy who can come off the edge or slide inside in passing situations if you need that. Their biggest need is still a quarterback. And I'll say this, a lot of nincompoops around the country are clueless about how the Texans operate. Nick Caserio has final say on all personnel decisions. He will listen to D'Amico Ryans. He values D'Amico Ryans' opinion. And but ultimately, it's his decision. The McNair family doesn't force him to make decisions. They never have, which is one reason they've had so many bad decisions. So he will make it because it's his butt on the line. He's in the 3rd year of a 6-year contract. All that rigmarole about he could leave, that was the biggest non-story I've ever seen. But a lot of people bought into it, even though it made no sense whatsoever. So there's a big movement afoot now. They don't want C.J. Stroud, that they want Will Levis. If they take Levis, then at least they have a big, strong arm, tough, likes to run, but made a lot of mistakes quarterback. And they can sell him. People will start to get fired up after a while, after they talk about how disappointed they are when they didn't take Stroud. And as you guys know, these mock drafts, and I do 7 of them, they're media concoctions. I'll be lucky if I get 1 right. And so the smart thing to do would be take the edge rusher. They're desperate. They have Jerry Hughes at 35. They let their other right end go in free agency, Obo Agarakwo, who had 5 sacks. Their left end has missed 11 games the last 2 years and last year of his contract. So they are desperate for an edge rusher. They are also desperate for a quarterback. I could be totally wrong. I could see them taking an edge rusher with the 2nd pick and a quarterback at 12, or trading back up to get a quarterback because they have 12 picks.
They do. So if they were picking first overall, would it be Bryce Young and a slam dunk? And if the answer to that question is yes, which it feels like it must be, how do they not just find a way to lose the last game of the last season?
Well, first, yes, it would be Bryce Young. And first of all, you never tell players to try to lose a game. It'd be a huge investigation. Lovie Smith wanted to win. Everybody wants to win. Now, you could pull players like the Mavericks did, bench like their whole starting unit, and then you're going to get fined. And they didn't lose draft choices. I'm surprised because they tanked to get into the lottery.
Yeah.
And it was obvious to everyone. And so, but you can't ask players and coaches to lose. They screwed up. They won. It cost them Bryce Young. you never know. Bryce Young may never pan out. He may get hurt,
Sure.
and the next player may be great, but that's the one they wanted.
John, what do they not like about Stroud?
I have no idea what they don't like about Stroud. Everybody wants to blame it on his agent. David Mulligetta should love the Texans. He signed a monster contract. He got included a no-trade clause, and they traded him where he wanted to go. And you can't beat that. Mulligetta should be sending them Christmas cards. They're not going to pass up a guy they think's a franchise quarterback because of David Mulligetta. They didn't have to deal with him for 3 years. And so, but I see that out there a lot by people that are clueless. And so, I don't, I tell you something that's getting a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it's strange to me, this new S2 cognitive test that measures how quickly you diagnose, quick decisions. Bryce Young had a 98. Will Levis had a 95. Anthony Richardson, 79. Hendon Hooker, 46. C.J. Stroud, 18. I don't know how much stock they put in that test. I think there's be much more to it. I don't know what it is that they put into it. I've heard all kinds of things. He's not a good runner. He is a good runner. He just didn't have to run.
Mm-hmm.
He said at the combine, why would I run when I got receivers running wide open? And people say, well, he played with great receivers. He didn't play with Olavian Wilson in that Rose Bowl against Utah, did he?
No.
And so there's a lot of things that come out this time of year, as you guys know, about prospects. And for whatever reason, the Texans appear to have not soured because maybe they weren't that high on him to begin with. And we'll never know. They'll never tell us. They'll just say, hey, we liked a lot of quarterbacks, but we like this one better. Or we like the quarterbacks, but boy, we love Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson. They're going to fit right in D'Amico Ryans' defense. He had 3 number 1 picks in his defensive line the last 2 years. He had none in his back 7. So we got to bolster that pass rush.
John, what would the fans want at 2?
Oh, the fans want a quarterback. They're going to be.
Would they want Stroud?
They're going to have about. Well, I think they don't know what they want, but yeah, he's been the popular pick.
Okay.
But fans don't have a clue any more than we do.
Yeah.
And I think Anthony Richardson is too much of a boomer bust project. Started 13 games. So what? He's got all this great ability, and he throws great in shorts and T-shirts. They can't take a chance. You can't get this one wrong. So it would seem to be that you would go with Stroud or maybe Levis. There are people out there that like Levis. Mel Kiper has Levis number 1. The 33rd team website, all run by former NFL people, they have Levis 3rd overall prospect, number 1 quarterback. There are some people out there, but if they draft Will Levis, there'll be booing like they booed the J.J. Watt pick, and boy, they were right on that one, weren't they?
So let's just go under the assumption they'd take a defensive end at 2. Do you think that they would then move up from 12 to try to get a quarterback?
He's got the draft capital to do it if he thought that was necessary. Now, I don't think for a minute Trey Lance is going to be traded. Kyle Shanahan's not going to give up on a guy. He gave 3 number 1s. He got 1 back and a 3. He's not going to give up on a guy after 2 years in which he had a major injury last year. Plus, Brock Purdy said last week he may not play this year. So what are they going to do? Go into the season with Sam Darnold? Kyle Shanahan doesn't have stupid written across his forehead. So I just don't see it. But if they were, maybe the Texans give up one of their 2 3s for him, maybe a conditional pick. And I don't think for a minute they're going after Lamar Jackson. But I tell you what, if they get out of the first round without a quarterback, I'm going to immediately start the Lamar Jackson getting on that bandwagon.
If you don't have one. So D'Amico Ryans is a guy that obviously you covered. You knew him well. And he ends up there, and it feels like everybody's excited about it. How much you mentioned that Caserio is the one who's going to make the decisions on personnel. In terms of Ryan's face of the organization, is that what he is now at this point? Because you look at the star power, unless you draft a quarterback. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely, he's the face of the organization, but you can't make him like a quarterback. If they don't like him, they don't like him. And they shouldn't draft a quarterback if they don't like one at number 2. That'd be stupid. And what they need is they've had the number 1 pick 3 times, never had number 2. They had number 1, David Carr. He bombed out. Mario Williams, he left as a free agent. Jadeveon Clowney got traded by Bill O'Brien. None of them have worked out the way the team wanted them to work out. And yet, Jadeveon Clowney was the consensus. David Carr was not. Mario Williams kind of dropped off a spaceship at the last minute.
Yep.
But he still averaged double sacks in his career. And but you can't make somebody like a quarterback. If C.J. Stroud ends up at Indianapolis and he plays against them twice a year, they will deserve everything they get. Maybe they'll be right. There's people see Indy likes Will Levis better than C.J. Stroud. It's all so confusing, but so intriguing.
It is intriguing, and it's a division that you feel like if the Texans get it right this year and are able to find that quarterback, they've got a lot of assets, and I feel like an ability to get pretty good pretty quickly. Tennessee, it feels like, is headed in the wrong direction. The Colts have not, for whatever reason, been able to be what they want, and it feels like they're kind of treading water and also in a similar boat searching. And then Jacksonville feels like they're very much the ascending team, and it's crazy to say, but the Jags, for the first time probably since the Mark Brunell, Keenan McCardle, Jimmy Smith era, and maybe I guess when they had that great defense a few years back, but they're the favorites in the division, I would think.
Well, they are the favorites in the division. Remember, 2017, they almost won in Foxborough to go to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Everybody picked them the next year, and they haven't done squat since. And because all the players wanted out because they weren't getting paid. And the Texans, the division's bad. It's not as bad as the NFC South, but they play the NFC South. So after playing AFC West, and there were Texans won 3, tied 1. There were 4 games in which they led in the fourth quarter, blew it because they just didn't have the talent. And they're still not going to have enough talent, but Casario's done a good job of stockpiling draft choices, which is what the McNair family wanted him to do, tear it down, rebuild it, and then when you get a chance for a quarterback, don't blow it. They thought they had that problem solved for 15 years with Deshaun Watson, and you guys know all about how that fell apart. So now they're trying to get their first franchise quarterback since 17, but you can't make them like somebody. And Nico's the most popular coach since Gary Kubiak, second most popular in franchise history. And the only thing that could really, I see, douse that fire that's burned since D'Amico was hired is if they don't take a quarterback in the first round.
John, get you out of here with a fun one. Before we had John, we were going through some of the history, the uniforms, the stadium, all of these things in regard to the Texans, and I certainly understand that they could never have the Oilers back because of the ownership there in Tennessee owns those rights and own the colors and all of that. Is that brand, because we were talking about how gorgeous those uniforms were, is that Oilers brand still popular in Houston?
A lot of the fans here are loyal to the Titans. Not a whole lot. You don't see. It's weird. This should be a great rivalry. It's never been because they've never been good at the same time except for a 2-year period. Probably the best it's been was when they bypassed Vince Young. You beat him with a touchdown in overtime here, and he was NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. But then that evaporated because Young didn't pan out.
Yeah.
And so it's never been what it should be. But if you talk about the uniforms, you talk about the name, they'll never get it, just like you were saying. The Oilers have all that. People don't understand that the Titans, the Oilers belong to the Titans, not the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of bad feelings about that here. And I love that old Columbia blue uniform. Used to like them tangle, get them all muddy and get snow all over them. Cat litter all over them at Cleveland Stadium. The mud and the blood and the beer. Those rivalries were so intense, especially when they were killing Jerry Glanville. And I miss those times. I covered them since 1977. But if anything gets people riled up here, it's about the Oilers, the Titans, and the Texans, and the uniforms.
Yeah, that'll do it. God bless you, sir. Thanks for your time today. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you very much. Enjoy the draft.
All right, that's the great John McLean at GallerySports.com, Sports Radio 610. It's an absolutely stupefying thing that's how it used to be, that you move the franchise and the franchise, all the history, the colors,
Everything.
all of it goes. Like, as if the NFL wasn't going to go back to Houston. It's a monster city. Like, you were never going to leave
Massive.
it empty at all, and yet they took all of it. And it was
Size
so
media
synonymous.
market. I mean, it's top
like
10.
6.
Is
yeah,
it?
we just you were.
I want to say
yesterday.
it's like the 4th or 5th biggest city in the country.
Yeah, top 5.
Independently. I mean,
Yeah.
it's huge.
Yeah.
And there's so much money in it. Like, you were never going to leave. You're never going to leave Houston and go, well, we don't. Do they care about football in Texas? We don't need to go back there. They don't. We just have the Cowboys. That's it. Like, there was never going to be in the cards. Like, to not have this foresight to be like, hey. And I think this was the first time that happened, where the history and the colors stayed here. Thank God.
Yeah.
And then the Sonics followed suit. When they went to Oklahoma City, they were treated as an expansion team. They weren't considered a continuation. And I think the same thing happened because the Pelicans are the old Hornets.
Right.
And I think the Hornets
but they
own
kept
the
it,
Hornets.
Well, because for a while they were the
Bobcats. Which was probably the most. The man named them after himself.
And they're orange. It was
orange and blue with like a
awful.
It was awful.
It's awful.
Awful. And then they finally got it back. I think when Jordan bought it.
Yeah,
he got
the Hornets are Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah.
Great colors, great.
Well, there was a time,
legacy.
and you and I were in the absolute
the best
epicenter of
uniforms.
this, where they had the best like that
In
was
sports.
just a transcendent uniform when that thing dropped.
Yeah, we had it in the studio for a long time. The white.
Alexander Julian designed.
Yeah,
and he did that, and they did the Carolina redesign in the early '90s because they used to have the Tar Heel actually on the shorts, and then they went with the Argyle.
The Argyle.
And he did that too. He was a UNC grad. He did both of those. Boy, be right with these at 2. Be right.
It's
If
wild.
they stay at 2 and they don't, if they stay at 2 and draft a defensive end, to me that would be a failure. Because
I agree.
Have somebody come up to 2 and get a quarterback, and I'll drop back and get
The
Jalen
thing
Carter
is-
or whatever.
And that's what I was saying is they're at 12, so it's not like they're guaranteed to just go get a quarterback. They've got to get. I mean, Vegas in theory could draft a quarterback. Seattle could draft a quarterback. Indy could draft a quarterback.
you're talking about forcing
Tennessee,
like
who's
Hendon
ahead
Hooker.
of you.
Arizona could take a QB.
Well, they just paid
Just
Tyler
to throw a
once
giant
180.
wrinkle in the thing. Hey, you got a new regime.
Yeah, but you can't move him. I don't
You
think.
can't get rid of his contract, and he's in the front and center in everything they just did in this uniform.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Ricky Prohl.
The
Ricky
blue is
Prohl.
the blue is beautiful.
By the
I
way,
like blue.
Joel and his wife Courtney Batonio made a $1 million gift to Nevada Athletics, the University of Nevada, and built the Batonio Family Strength and Conditioning Center.
Oh,
So,
that's great. Good
very
job out of
nice,
them. Yeah, very
nice.
good. But that's the problem with NIL, because the Nevada NIL would rather have them give the million. That you're fighting for the same dollars. Nevada needs Joe to donate to the NIL so they can pay athletes, and then they need him to donate $1 million so they can build facilities.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's where college football is right now. So much more to come. You'll see Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Hey, go Cavs tonight. By the way, there's no way that you weren't.
Yeah.
By the way, there's no way the Houston Oilers / Tennessee Titans own the color Columbia blue.
Named after Columbia.
There's just no chance.
By the way,
maybe the NFL has an exclusive, like.
It's not that different than Carolina's blue when they wore the blue jerseys. Yeah.
Why can't Roger Goodell just be like, you got to give them that back?
If they don't want to give them the Oilers back, which, by the way, I think they should do that too.
Yes.
If they don't want to give that back, like, they could easily give them the blue. Like,
1 minute, 1 minute.
They could wear that blue color.
And they should. By the way, let's hope the NBA doesn't eject anybody from these games.
Oh, I'm tired of it.
You have to do something insane to get ejected from a playoff
Agreed.
game. Not.
Yes. I'm tired of this.
The Harden one was absurd, and I'm sorry, and I'm no Draymond apologist or fan. That was absurd too.
It was. Yeah, he should not have lost a game.
No way.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Gibbe made it sound like he Macho
Tough it
Man
up.
Savage jumped off the top rope and stomped him. Just as he jumped off of the guys, just because the guy held his foot when
I'm
he
going
was
to tell you right now.
If he didn't hold his foot, he would have leapt over him the first time. The only
never
reason he
would've
came back
landed
on
on
the
I'm going
chest
to tell you right
was-
now, I'd have just smiled and been like, I'll see you on the other end of the court. And I would have gotten everybody together and gone,
30-30.
Where
just
did
let
you
him
play
go
high
because
school?
I'm going to check him into
You're
the
Lakewood?
stands.
Lakewood? Mm-hmm. Were you the lame beer of Lakewood?
No.
Yes.
I bet you were.
No,
Yes. Cheap shots
no.
left
I
and
was
right,
not. I had a
elbows,
couple other
enforcers.
buddies like that.
Have a great weekend, everybody. The next level is next. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.